And good afternoon. This is Coach Big Pete of DeepDishFootball.com for the Deep Dish Football Game of the Week Spotlight, Player Spotlight. This time it's going to be the Stagg defensive line. Um, this defensive line, I got to say, I've been quite impressed with these past days looking at the game film. Their ability to basically stay controlling their gaps, their ability to pass rush, and just their ability to listen to defensive line coaches is impressive. And as a former defensive line coach, it's hard to have a coach, have a kid listen to you fully and not to tell them not to over pursue or do any of that other stuff. Just keep it and box out the gap. And these kids actually box out the gap, especially their defensive tackles, who I'm quite impressed with and their defensive ends too. So just to go over a couple few things, and to see that one is KJ Johnson. KJ Johnson, I was completely impressed with. I saw his game film just now today. Um, his ability, basically, his ability to basically control the contain, and he's going to have to control the contain against Homewood Flossmoor this Friday night. I was completely impressed with that. He's still very raw, has a lot more growth to do that you can see, but he does a hell of a job containing, hell of a job with the pass rush, and a great front step, first step, pivot foot is excellent, especially for a defensive end. And they do basically a four man front. So, but KJ Johnson's one of those kids to take a bit of a closer eye at. He's 6 foot, but he'd make a great edge rusher in college. Going down, there's one. Where are you? Trying to find this kid. Oh, Tyler Winkelmann. Now, he doesn't have any of his highlights, but I looked at the other kids and you could see him. Really impressed with him. He's a junior at Stagg, 6'2", great, a little bit more explosive with the arms. Love what he does with his arms. Another defensive end to keep a close eye on for, especially against this Friday. It's going to be a huge test for both defensive ends. But Winkelmann does a great job, especially attacking the outside. Has a great great arm extension. Ability to move offensive linemen off into the gap is unbelievable. But I was completely impressed with Winkelmann. I was completely impressed with the other defensive end. I'm was really impressed with the defensive line. Um, this guy, undersized, 5'6", Sotiris Korakis, got a fumble and an interception. But what I do like is, um, he went to the, I think it was the B gap. He exposed the B gap, penetrated the B gap, and his ability not to over penetrate and basically stay in his gap was unbelievable. I was completely odd really taken back by that, because a lot of defensive tackles, even top ranked defensive tackles, don't even know to do gap control. And this kid did gap control, and I was completely impressed with that. They have another defensive tackle. I forgot his name. Uh, that plays for Stagg. That he does. He literally did almost the same thing. That's why I was quite impressed that the Stagg defensive line, out of all the game film that I've seen these past 3 weeks, the Stagg defensive line listens to their coach and does what their coach asks of them. And I don't even need to be in that meeting because I know what the coach wants them to do. And they're doing a lot of good things. There's a couple mistakes that they make, but the Stagg defensive line is actually quite impressive. Very undersized, but they get the job done. And they're, like I said, it doesn't matter about the talent, doesn't matter about the size. If you can follow your coach's instructions and do it to a T, you'll be able to win games. And Stagg's defensive line is quite impressive. So let me go. There's another guy that I want to go over too. Tyler Winkelmann, I went over. Uh, they got a young defensive end that I'm looking for. Uh, Another defensive tackle, Rolando Schaller, uh, Crimson Ocho. They got some undersized defensive tackles, but they do the right job. They do a great job, and that's key for a defensive line coach. You can have an undersized defensive lineman, but an undersized defensive lineman, it doesn't matter if he's big or tall. If you have an undersized defensive lineman that listens to you, that's able to contain his gaps, show gap control, show gap responsibility, and zero in on those holes that the offense is going to carve up, you got a scary defensive line. And this Stagg defensive line, technically sound, does a technically sound job on the defensive line. They do a hell of a job. My hats off to Coach. If I get the mistake wrong, Berg, defensive line coach of Stagg. If I am mistaken, I do apologize. But I was going to do a player spotlight. I was going to do a player spotlight on a running back, which I probably will do tomorrow. But Stagg's defensive line deserves hats off for what they did, and especially their ability to create confusion among the offensive play calling is unbelievable. So the Stagg defensive line is my first spotlight player. Just that whole Stagg defensive line, those two defensive ends, that defensive tackle I mentioned. Hats off to all of them. They do a hell of a job. Keep up the good work, guys, and I can't wait to see what you guys do Friday night against Homewood Flossmoor. This is Coach Big Pete. Be sure you follow Coach Big Pete and Deep Dish Football on Twitter and Facebook. Also visit deepdishfootball.com. But my first spotlight for the Deep Dish Football game of the week between Stagg and Homewood Flossmoor is the Stagg defensive line.